Nice. I was wondering where those maps are.
Yeah, it's perfect feed for Worldpreneur.
Yeah.
All right, so we're started. So today we're pretty excited. This is our second show in the better part of the last 2 hours. We just finished one that was on diversity in business, which actually went great, and we had some great people on the panel, some good ninjas. And I think today we have our second panel, which is pretty exciting. And I think this is actually exciting for two reasons. One, because we have some amazing panelists that have some great Worldpreneur experience. But I also think that the other reason is that this is our first panel for Worldpreneur, which is a coined phrase or name that we came up with to actually bucket these great people that fit in around the world. So we're pretty excited for that. And I'll kind of start off by just saying welcome. Thank you. And I think the next kind of thing we're going to do is kind of go into a little bit about yourselves. Provide your name, kind of what you're doing, your business, maybe a little background about yourselves, and then one thing that nobody would know about you. And to kick it off, I'll kind of give a little snapshot of myself, which then I'll kind of give you some ideas on something of my background again as well. And then we'll kind of jump into some questions and comments and work our way through that. So Jeffrey Podvin, so I'll be moderating this. Of a company called Harbu Communications, which is a software application company that has been in business for roughly 9 years. And we have offices in New York, Pakistan, Philippines, and Toronto. And from there, we basically facilitate beginning to end on the development lifecycle. So one of the things that I recently brought up about myself that many people wouldn't know was that I've traveled to close to 50 countries. And now I have to come up with a third one. So apparently every show I have to come up with something different. So I guess in a way I'm exploring my other side of it, but my brain is running across a million things. So something that I have done, that outside of that, I used to play the piano. And I'm not going to say I was very good at it. But it was something that I had taught for a few years. I was probably good as a kid and no longer anymore, but I'm starting to learn to play the guitar. So that's my next music feed. So, but why don't we turn it over to Caroline? Why don't you jump in and give us a little bit more detail about your background, where you're from, where you are, and kind of a little bit about yourself.
Sure. I'm Caroline. Really nice to meet you guys, by the way. I'm owner of a company that's called Anders. And what we actually do, we have a vision to bring people closer to their cities and to their towns and together actually as well. We strive towards a more inclusive society. And for that, we build software platforms and apps. And one of our apps or one of our brands is called Map Your City. We recently launched, only last year, we launched our first minimal viable product. And we're at our second release right now, working on that. It's right around the corner. And we're very happy with the company that's helping us with that. Maybe you know it, Heartboot Inc. So, and just to give a little background on myself, something, well, at least you guys don't know. I used to play soccer in the streets as a kid, and I'm quite fond of the game still. And when I'm in Holland, I try to watch a lot of the Dutch competition here as well.
Oh, that's awesome. Soccer, footy is the best. It's an awesome sport.
Yeah, it is. Kind of miss it when I'm in Canada, though.
Oh, you can still watch it anywhere in the world. There's so much soccer, but you don't get to see the same caliber of soccer, but you still get to. Andrew, how about yourself?
So I am a co-founder and vice president of development for a company called Pacifico HVDC Link. And so we're a developer of a transmission project that's intended to interconnect the regional electricity systems of Peru and Chile. So probably a little bit different. It's a sort of a large infrastructure project. So we've been around for, it'll be 2 years at the end of this November. So we're kind of working through the development process to be able to get to a construction ready stage. I guess something about me, I guess I'll keep it to sports. I'm a pretty big volleyball player despite not being very tall. But at one point in high school, I blocked top-ranked under 21 male beach volleyball player in the province twice in a row, and then promptly retired after that. So I went out on a high.
Claim to fame. I like that. Tim.
Jeff Ray. Yeah, my name's Tim Ray. I am founder of a company called Carnivore Club, which is a subscription e-commerce company that does charcuterie of the month around the world. We're in Canada, the US, and Europe, and we're launching in Australia later this year. I'm on my second e-commerce company. I'm kind of found this nice niche in food and technology, and really liking the space. Something that you probably wouldn't know about me is that on a recent trip to Iceland, I've crossed off a couple things from my bucket list. One is rode a horse for the first time, so I got a chance to ride the Icelandic pony, which was amazing, a really cool experience. And I also got a chance to eat some authentic Icelandic dish, which was sheep's head. And I actually ate like a sheep's eyeball, which was
Crunchy.
kind of gross like that, but it was actually quite tasty.
That's awesome. Very crunchy.
I was in Iceland about a year ago, I guess last October. It's a beautiful place. It's incredible.
Yeah, you feel like you're on the moon kind of, eh?
Yeah, for sure.
I was actually sent a message off today to find out the details around going to Iceland for a few days.
Yeah.
You should rent a car though, not go by bus. That's what I did, and the car is much more exploring, and it's much more fun.
Oh, cool. There are some good insights. I like that.
Yeah.
Well, being on the OPN, which is the Open People Network, and I think the whole key and the great thing about what we're trying to do on OPN is that we want to share stories and really dive deep into kind of everybody's experiences and share those around so that other entrepreneurs and students and anybody else in business has some great content that they can listen to and kind of learn from and hopefully help them solve problems as they go forward in business. So I think I want to kick it off to you by throwing out that this term of worldpreneur, and I probably should have actually looked up the exact term because we're trying to define it at the moment, but in that case, we'll just kind of breeze over the term and just say that it really is a place where entrepreneurs or business people have worked or traveled in other countries to learn the culture and kind of built a business inside that country outside of their own, as we all do business here. So I think inside of that context, we can share that out and you guys can help us iterate on that. But I think the first thing to me is really understanding what you guys feel kind of sets you aside from that everyday entrepreneur that just kind of starts a business in Toronto and tries to expand, but always looks at outside avenues. So I think maybe the first question for me to you guys would be, what actually made you decide to go to another country and start working there or building a company inside of another country? So maybe we can start off with Andrew, and you can kind of give us maybe a little bit of the background and then kind of why you chose to go to Chile and build out this amazing, massive infrastructure project.
Sure. Well, I guess maybe a little bit of background on that was a couple years ago, I joined a small hydropower development company based in Toronto, originally working on projects in Canada and the US. But I guess by chance, we literally just met a guy at a bike store who had some connections down to South America, and then suddenly, we're looking at Chile first, and then Peru later as markets, and just from that sort of chance encounter, we started liking the markets there and understanding them a bit more, and then sort of a couple months started traveling down there and looking at setting up partnerships or looking to form joint ventures, and then I guess probably about 6 months to, I don't know, about a year after that, I was walking off the plane with all my stuff moving to Lima for a year. So I think I don't know if it was intended, but certainly I think I noticed that there was an opportunity there. I think I really enjoyed sort of the culture there. It's a very sort of lively part of the world, and just a lot happening. And so I just sort of jumped at the opportunity to go down there. And I think it was certainly challenging. I knew how to count to 10 in Spanish and say hello and thank you, and that was about it. So I think there was a pretty big learning curve on a personal basis, but I think that whole experience, just was great, and set me up also for helping start this company where we're at now.
Okay, awesome. And Tim, why don't you jump in there as well? What kind of gave you the drive to expand outside of the Toronto space?
Yeah, well, the first, getting into the subscription e-commerce space, being from Canada, it's a pretty small market to be successfully just in Canada. And, I really knew that we wanted to take this really cool niche of like this Charcuterie of the Month Club and take it globally. So we started with the US. US went, really well. And, charcuterie, the part that we're, really glorifying here in North America was originated in Europe. So, within the first 9 months of launching, we just really wanted to put our stake down and say that, we were, starting to, do this really, innovative e-commerce model within Europe, which is generally a little bit technologically behind the rest of North America. And so we thought it was a good opportunity with the subscription e-commerce space to go in there where there's tons of opportunity and suppliers to really, discover really cool artisans and, feature them to the rest of, the market. It's a very localized market over there. And, over the last 3 years, we've been getting lots of emails from Australians being, kind of this westernized culture in Southeast Asia, which is kind of like they're forgotten a bit as far as, where startups go. They kind of go there last because of the time zone and, how difficult it is to operate from across the world. I'm experiencing that right now because, 7 o'clock here PM is 9 a.m. there. And so my work day is now extended from 7 p.m. to like midnight talking with people in Australia. So I've probably bitten off more than I can chew right now, but we really didn't want to leave Australia out of the mix and thought it'd be cool to bring it across the world there as well. And, what better way to, visit the world than when you can write it off for work, right?
That's true. I totally agree with that. So
speaking of which, I actually launched Carnival Club while I was doing a month in France with my wife and my kids. So it was actually perfect being in the European time zone because, being 5 or 6 hours ahead, I could do my thing there. And then, 6 p.m. there was noon here, and I still had a half a day to do stuff. So it was actually really cool to be able to launch, taste French charcuterie from France and also launch Carnival Club at the same time.
that's awesome. And Caroline, how about yourself?
Yeah, well, the funny thing is we were actually focusing on a project in Amsterdam and just doing our thing here, bringing together, I don't know if you call, the brand, it's called CityWorks, but we were bringing together entrepreneurs and owners of vacant buildings to build a business case together. And the way we did that in co-creation, that brought a huge amount of international attention towards our company and towards our idea. And that's how actually Canada came to us. So we got a little traction from there. And we were invited to New York and Detroit. And on this little tour, I went to Toronto as well, which was funny because well, my family is living there, or parts of my family is still living there. So I used to know the country quite well, but never thought of Canada as a business opportunity. So once I kind of got to know the ins and outs there, we were introduced to different organizations there by the Greater Toronto Marketing Alliance. They actually came to Amsterdam at one point, and they said, well, you know, this is the program we have, and if you're interested in investing and bringing your product to Canada or to the Toronto area, we can support you with that. And the funny thing is, we didn't even have a product at that time. You know, we were still developing, and we had a prototype. So we said, well, this is it. And yeah, they were kind of impressed, but with what we were doing at that point, and were willing to introduce us, even at that point, to their network. And from that point on, things kind of started rolling, and then that's how we ended up in Canada. And the funny thing is, with you know, just software as a service, or developing an app, you know, you only need like an App Store account, or you know, your Play Store account, and it's available all over the world. So I think from an entrepreneurial perspective, what would set like worldpreneurs or people with a little more of a global mindset apart from regular entrepreneurs, I guess it's the idea. Entrepreneurs always have the idea of, you know, not seeing limitations or boundaries or borders in anything, and I think people with a little more international mindset probably don't even see like national borders as a limitation, but more as an opportunity. And yeah, I guess that's, you know, never seeing that as a limitation for your business. I think that's what sets probably all of us apart.
For sure. I'm guessing that kind of as we grow our businesses and look at different avenues to move into different sectors or countries, that you probably do look at what is the best way to get into this country? What are the things that I need to do to be part of that culture? How do I hire the right people? How do I make this business become a success in another country? How do I trust somebody outside of my network that's not in front of me? Because I think we're all kind of based around, when I built my company, I built it in Toronto and everybody was around me. So how do I get that same experience abroad? So I think those are all great challenges. And interestingly enough, this crew is obviously part of saying, you know what, I need to be able to get into these other countries. I need to be able to expand how I operate and the things that I'm going to do. And if that's also expanding the trust branch. So maybe the next kind of question that I'll ask is, when you were looking at expanding, and you mentioned each of the different countries from being in Europe to Central South America and expanding to all these different regions, what was the, outside of the opportunity, what did you find as being the best learning, or something that you can share that would say, you know, this is what I had to do to get into this space to feel more comfortable? Is it I hired the right people, I hired a third party, or I spent a lot of time there myself doing it? Tim, you mentioned some stuff. You were launching a business in one country and in another. So maybe start with yourself, but when you started to expand into these other countries, how did you build that comfort level so that you knew you could do the same thing, same experience you had in Toronto?
Yeah, you know, when we decided to launch in the UK, it was kind of a fast follow from our US and Canadian launch. And we started to do, you know, research on basically all the suppliers, you know, trying to find out what kind of market there is there from both a supply and a demand side. The actual, you know, from our niche, the charcuterie market in the UK is actually quite new. It's only been being produced locally for about 10 to 15 years. So we partnered with a local distributor there, kind of a young guy that was also my age. I went to the UK, met him, did dinner and drinks, kind of, you know, really started to develop that, you know, professional and personal relationship, and start to learn a little bit more about the local culture, and also hired a local PR firm that would really know more of the, you know, hot points for, you know, local consumers, so that way we can get into national media through earned editorial and gift guides and you know, editorial mentions across the national media. So we're doing that same recipe in Australia, where we've hired a prominent PR firm that also helped launch Hotel Tonight in Australia. And we find that, obviously, you know, us not being very familiar with the local culture, you know, obviously we both speak English, but we find different things funny. We have different, you know, ways we say things, and so it's important to really I appreciate that I'll never fully grasp, the UK consumers' mindset or the Australians or, some of the Americans either. But, trying to trying to get by the best we can with local help is probably for me the best recipe to being successful. I don't think I would ever go into a foreign market without local expertise to at least consult me.
Andrew, how about yourself? I think you've experienced a bunch of this in different roles, and obviously now in your new one. So how are you finding, or how did you go finding this?
I think we've certainly followed a similar mindset of we don't know the local market as well in depthly. So in all the situations I've been down there, we've always looked to try to establish some kind of local partnership with someone we can trust. So it can take a while. I think it's certainly something you don't want to do overnight. So with the hydropower company, it was probably almost probably a year of getting to meet people and sort of going through and seeing if we could work with different groups before we finally decided on which groups we'd partner with and do a deal with. And so I think that you do need that sort of that business plus personal relationship, and it's something that takes time, and it is difficult to happen quickly. Something else that or another resource that has been really valuable to us is the Canadian Trade Commissions in both Peru and Chile. The staff there have opened doors for us. When we've met with people, we've kind of passed names through them just to try to get a sense of what their reputation is within the market in the country. So I think that's certainly a resource that the staff's there to help facilitate companies to do business, and I think we've been really advantaged by sort of wholeheartedly going and sort of getting that help from them. So I think for anyone considering going to do business in another country, definitely see if there's if Canada's got an embassy there and a trade commission, and make that one of your first stops.
That's a good, very good, valid point. Do you, in that same context, is there, when you go into these countries and you're building out these different relationships, that you've all said it's taken a bit of time? I'm assuming you're using a product like LinkedIn, or you're doing something to that effect to kind of figure out who you're going to talk to, who carries the business acumen that you're looking for. But is there also groups that you can go to, like an angel group or meaning investor groups, because they're going to have their kind of their tentacles into so many different businesses that might help you? Is there a board of trade that you find in each of these countries that can also kind of lead you through the path? Are these something that you guys considered as well or looked at?
Yeah, so we haven't really gone that route. I think for us, we found the people that we've met to be very open to helping make connections. And so it started with one connection, and then one led to two, and two led to to 5 connections. And so I think I guess the route we took was more just through word of mouth and getting introduced to different parties and different groups, telling them what we're interested in and who we are and what we'd want to do. And I think it just seems at least the business community there was very open to facilitating that. So I think that was for us, it was definitely a positive, where it was never we weren't, once we started first going down, it wasn't really we had to actively push. There was a lot of people saying, hey, why don't you talk to this person, go talk to that person. So we've had I think a pretty positive experience in that sense. And I know that might not happen, it might not be as positive in other countries in the world.
For sure. And Caroline, how about yourself? How did this all kind of start for you? And is Canada kind of that, we're doing the reverse, we're all leaving Canada and you're coming into Canada, so it's kind of fascinating. We're like, we're out of here, and you're like, no, I need to come to your country. I need to find somewhere cold.
I guess no, I guess it's the same with a lot of Dutch companies as well, and Canadian companies coming to the Netherlands, for example, or I guess it also has to do with having the advantage of being a foreign company, being in another country, when you do get the help from organizations that are there to help foreign companies set up. So we use the Greater Toronto Marketing Alliance, or they're called Invest Toronto at this point. And of course, like the embassies and the consulates, they were a great help as well. As Andrew said, I think these are a source that you should never ignore, and they're very helpful to help you set up. But still, you need to do stuff yourself. I mean, you need to be there. You need to invest in the relationship yourself. You need to find out who to trust there yourself. But I do think that us making the move the other way around, I think we're getting acknowledged abroad a little more than in the Netherlands, and it's probably, I don't know what it is, but I'm comparing it to soccer again. I don't know. The love of soccer brings you brings you a lot of examples as well. But like young kids or young players, growing up with a certain club, enjoying their training there, but not being recognized as the talent that they are. They sometimes need to play abroad in another competition to get acknowledged, and to for their club to see their potential. So I'm kind of guessing that's kind of happening with companies across, like Canadian companies coming to Europe or other countries, and for us it certainly helped us to get a threshold in Canada. So yeah, that's it's funny, but yeah, it kind of works that way.
And Tim, did you find the same thing, that when you guys started to go in these other countries, as the ways you were trying to expand and get to meet people, did you find that you were more accepted because you were coming from Canada? They're like, we love Canadians, they're the best. Or we need to work with these guys because we don't have something like this. And you know what, this is the next shiny penny kind of thing. And everybody wants to pick it up as kind of, I think Caroline's kind of alluding to, is that when you go to a different country, there is kind of this fascination with the fact that you're trying to do something there. So let's do everything we can to help them, because that'll be international exposure for the government and for the Canadians, and vice versa in other countries.
Yeah, it's a really good point. We're in that process right now with Australia, where a lot of the producers or artisans that we're talking to love the idea of this e-commerce club dedicated just to their niche product, where no one else is doing this kind of company, right? So one of them just emailed me yesterday saying, really glad you're coming to Australia. Australia needs Carnival Club, someone to really champion and tell that story of all these really cool artisans that are doing this really ancient craft of curing meat. Wine as a category gets so much attention. There's so many wine clubs. People love wine, and charcuterie, same degree of craftsmanship, but maybe a little bit more overlooked. And so same thing in the UK. Everyone's really helpful. I don't know if that's, I kind of thought that was probably just us being Canadian, that people love to help, the Canadians, because we have this international reputation for being polite, perhaps. But everything's been really positive. The one tricky thing I gotta go back to is that, it's really knowing the finer details, especially in a B2C company like myself, and yours as well, is that, knowing that local market and, how to really appeal to them to get that scalable growth is important, and it can be really difficult and, expensive if you're not doing it right.
For sure. No, and that makes sense. So I guess overall, the experience everybody's had so far in the countries that they have expanded into, it's been quite well received inside of the country, if it's Canada or Chile and Peru or England and Australia, that no matter where you've gone, you've been quite well accepted for being an entrepreneur and saying, I want to bring my business into this country. And you've expanded by going through partners and really working through the locals to find the key talent that you need to be successful. When you were saying, Andrew, that you spent some time kind of talking through and working with these partners, is there certain criteria that you kind of put against the list to say that this is kind of an interesting way of looking at a partnership in another country? Do you look at them like they're Canadian, or do you look at them and say, you know, here's 6 things that we need to make sure that they cross the T's, dot the I's, that they're professional, that they're this or that? Is there certain things that you can say when you're in another country that you look for that can kind of help other entrepreneurs when they're trying to expand as well?
Yeah, I think for us, certainly just through the process and we were, you know, initially for the hydropower company, we were going down and we were looking at partnering and looking at projects that had already been initiated. So stepping in when there had been some work done and you know, so it wasn't from the ground up. So there were 2 aspects there. One was certainly, you know, what does the project look like? But then also we're, you know, interested in the track record and reputation of those developers and you know, what, you know, how they were viewed within the market. And that's where we, you know, we utilized the context that the existing context that we had to sort of gauge that, as well as like the trade commission and then also our lawyers as well. So I think, you know, for us, it was certainly just, you know, the reputation and their, I guess the professionalism and track record was something that we really paid attention to.
Did you
and then,
scrutinize more? Because like, did you scrutinize like you were hiring an employee in Toronto? Were you a little bit more in depth on that because you really have a lot riding on this? It's not like a small
I would say
little thing.
we took a lot longer than, for example, interviewing someone to work for you. You know, the processes were, you know, it took several months. It took, you know, several trips. It was something that, you know, we really wanted to, you know, get and make a relationship and really sort of test it to see if, you know, we'd be able to work together. So I think it was it always seemed to take longer than we initially thought, but I think that's probably normal.
For sure. And Caroline, how about yourself? When you started off, you mentioned that you met with different groups in Toronto and surrounding areas. Was there anything extra that you kind of went through when putting this together, and were you scrutinized more or scrutinizing the people you were trying to talk with to get a little bit more in depth, or was it more kind of a fit and then how that fit would actually work with your culture and how you wanted to build everything out going forward?
Well, we're also still in that process at this point. So we kind of set up a few of our partnerships to kind of test our technology and our product and to build it out and to prioritize which elements, you know, would fit next to develop. Because still, you know, it's an expensive journey, and I think to all international entrepreneurs that are thinking of taking these steps, I think you do need to realize, you know, you need to spend money before you make money. So that's one of the things that you do need to be aware of, and also some of the things came a little quicker for us than intended. So we were having increasingly difficult discussions with you know, like our Amsterdam team about the context in Canada and what our clients or potential clients would want in Canada. So at that point, we kind of started looking for a company that could help us with that Canadian perspective. And actually, because we needed to move that quickly, we were introduced to quite a few companies, and during that time, there was this summer actually, you know, I talked to, I think, well, I didn't even count, like so many companies upon introduction of our network at that point, because, you know, you're there, you don't know any like credentials of the companies you want to work with, so you need to rely on the credentials of others. So yeah, and then, you know, well, we partnered up with you guys at Hardwood. So yeah, it's going to be a a great collaboration. I think you bringing in the local perspective as well, the local context, understand the needs from a like a Canadian perspective, and at the same time, we still have our Amsterdam input as well. So yeah, I'm sometimes things go faster than you want them to go, but sometimes it's necessary, and you need to just go with the flow and see where it gets us. And I think we made the right decision there, although it was like made within, I think, 6 weeks or so.
So it's and you mentioned it being a collaborative component. So I think that as you were trying to figure out meeting through all these businesses, you kind of had to find that right feeling or that right next step, which again, you said most people are usually things take too slow, they're too long, take forever. So in this case, you're actually moving pretty quickly, and you're like, I need to slow it down a little bit, it's going too quick, which is, in a way, it's kind of sounds interesting because you don't always hear that, right? A lot of the time people want to go faster. So maybe your fast is way too fast and you're at the right speed now, but that's still pretty interesting on kind of where you've taken yourself and how you got there based on your network. So the network certainly helped you get there. So that's pretty fascinating.
Yeah, definitely. I think Canada is a very much a networked society, even more so than the Netherlands is. And I think that networked entrepreneurial society does help you get to arrange for things fast. Yeah.
For sure. And Tim, how about on your end? Did you, while you were kind of working through different partnerships and building out, and did you find yourself just feeling more comfortable working with these different countries because they are so similar to Canadians? So they were like, well, it's Australia, it's England. They're all kind of very much like Canadians. So they're all very multicultural. They seem to be easygoing. I found a couple guys I liked, and boom, now we've hit it and it's going great. Or did you find yourself doing the same things? I got to be more scrutinized. I got to make sure that this is the right group and the right people. I don't want to do this 6 times and all that.
Yeah, so when we actually launched with the UK business, we started with a partnership with a local company, for various reasons, we actually mutually decided that we needed to just exit that partnership. We kind of gave them probably they had a fairly small equity stake in that expansion, and so the time that they were putting in it wasn't equating. It wasn't really helping us pass our initial launch, and so we just decided to buy them out quickly before that equity became worth exponentially more. And so now we're operating UK solely from Canada, and I do a couple trips a year to go and meet people there, just to put a face to the name, and they don't know that I'm some random guy in Canada. But yeah, so as we've progressed over the last 2 years, we've become exponentially more comfortable with the UK market. We're starting to get some more of the nuances. We realize that Mother's Day in the UK is not the same as in North America, which we found out by saying Happy Mother's Day, and it was like the month before in Britain. And
you look like you're just really planning ahead.
Yeah. And then we just launching into Australia. Apparently Australia Father's Day is in September, not in June. So there's all these things that you think and then you figure out very quickly that you everything's not the same as where you're from. So but actually launching the Australian market for us, we're a lot more confident. We were just following the same formula. I think that first real international expansion to the UK, we're kind of just like holding by the seat of our pants, hoping things were going to work out. We're a 6-hour flight away, so it wasn't like we could just drive over there and make sure things got done. And luckily, we do have one local partner there that does all of our logistics, which we wouldn't be able to operate without, and they've been amazing to us. So similar to Andrew, we really chatted with a lot of people and made sure that the people that we truly put our business at stake with was great companies that we could trust.
So as you guys are kind of expanding now and you're looking at where the business is going to go, are you looking at expanding to even more countries, or are you looking at how can I grow the base in the country that I'm in obviously the countries that we've talked about, they're all quite large. So is there potential, and maybe Andrew, on your side, this might be a little bit of a different question because you're shifting to how are we going to connect other countries to the same power grid, if that's something that is even possible. But when you're looking at that expansion of it, do you then start to look at it and say, well, you know what, we really do need to have better feet on the ground. We're going to take someone from our office here to go and move them into Chile to now operate everything that we have down there and start to expand the business. So instead of going to another country, you just need to grow faster and bigger in the set country that you're operating in. Is that something that you're now looking at as being part of your next step, or how do you envision where you're going next?
Yeah, so I think for us, so you know, we're pretty focused on this project. We're sort of actively right now looking for a large partner to take the next step with. So that's a process that's ongoing, and I think that process will determine, you know, how the level and magnitude of our involvement. So, you know, amongst the partners, you know, we've talked about, you know, is someone, you know, willing to go down there for, you know, a period of time, you know, in the latter stages of development to help push things forward, and so we're kind of going through that process now. It's not sort of fully clear yet, and I think it'll depend on, you know, the structure of the partnership agreement that we do get. On your other question of, you know, are we looking at other projects? I think just like you guys, you know, they're always looking for something. It's sort of you kind of can't turn that off, I think, and sometimes you have to really force yourself to turn that off to focus on certain things. But you know, our view is that Europe is a market where, you know, interconnectedness in the electricity system, it's a very interconnected system. North America, to a certain extent, is as well. And our view is that South America is going through that interconnection process. So we view there as being sort of lots of other opportunities and ones we're thinking about as well that, you know, could lead to the next project. But I think at this moment in time, our focus is on sort of solely on this project. It's big enough, I guess.
No, well, focus is good too, right? And it doesn't take your eye off the ball, and it allows everybody on the team to do the same thing. So, Carolyn, how about on your side? Are you how are you envisioning this right now? Because I know your product can basically drop in anywhere, and I'm thinking off the top of my head, I'm thinking countries that have had a bit of a tougher go with space. And I've been to Portugal, Spain, and Greece. They've all had some tough bouts of business. Even looking at cities like Detroit, where they're trying to expand and they have buildings everywhere and that are vacant and things where you can totally drop in and try to create a whole new culture around driving entrepreneurs and businesses into these new spaces. So is that something that you're looking at, or how are you envisioning your?
Well, at this point, with Map Your City, we're really we're finding out a lot of stuff as well, from product side, but also business side, also business model side. So also where your perfect niche is. So we're finding out from a business perspective that maybe other niches are much more interesting because, you know, someone needs to pay the bill. Yeah, like tourism industry seems a much more interesting prospect than the urban community, for example. Well, the urban community kind of adapted us at first, but for a business model to grow and for our company to scale, tourism is much more interesting, and we're actually in that niche right now. So yeah, and that's us finding out within the Canadian market and with our first launching clients, how that works, how our business model works, how our pricing model works. So that, yeah, that's something you can only find out when you kind of focus on the project, right? And I think you do need to have like a larger vision. I think all of us have. You know, we want to change the world. You know, not rule the world, but change it a little bit. So yeah, of course, you know, when you kind of look beyond that, you have dreams, you have ambitions, but focus for the first part, getting traction and getting and growing and scaling is a lot of work, and I think needs a lot of our attention.
So keeping where you are now and just driving it harder, and the success will lead to moving into different spaces as you see it coming around, right?
Exactly. Well, yeah, and we do get traction from other countries as well. You can see, of course, where your app is downloaded. We're not a consumer-based model. We're a business-to-business model or business-to-government model. So yeah, that means that we need to have like a sales capacity in the region where we are. So you need to visit people, you need to show your face, you need to show what your product can do. And that's not marketing driven only. So marketing scales your efforts, but like, if you're in business to business or business to government, you need to show up. You need to people need to have a face to get their complaints across, to get their compliments across, but also to get their ideas and their ambitions across, and how to see how and to discuss with you how you can help them with that as well. So that's why I said, well, you need to focus at one place at a time, and then grow from there.
For sure. Timmy, how are you feeling on that? Is this you've got enough markets on the go right now, and you can't be everywhere, so you're going to keep with what you're at and just grow the hell out of them, or what are your thoughts?
Well, I've crossed off all the time zones, so I can't get any crazy that way. Yeah, honestly, part of that reason to grow so quickly, at least to all the predominantly English-speaking countries, was just because most businesses scale, especially in e-commerce. You start off with a cool niche, let's say like Groupon, where you did like one daily deal a day, and then all of a sudden you go into this giant monster that is much bigger than the original niche that made you cool to begin with. And so we decided as a company that we didn't want to necessarily scale beyond this like cool little charcuterie of the month club. We wanted to basically do this cool concept globally and be there first. And so that's why we decided to grow as quickly as we could geographically, so that way we could grow our revenue and become a large business without having to become all these different revenue streams that wasn't the original intention of the business. So we're good for now. I think we're gonna try and scale Australia, and then next would be logical steps would be if we were to translate our website into various languages and just start to penetrate Europe more fully. That would probably be our next step.
Oh, very cool. So I guess overall, it sounds like everybody's trying to keep a good focus and dedicating their time, limited or not, if it's working 3 time zones or whatnot, but trying to focus on what they're doing the best at and driving it forward to get to some sort of number or level of growth in the country that you're in, or all the countries that you're in, before kind of proceeding to that next country or that next expansion. I guess maybe my next question would be that while you're kind of now dedicated and focusing your time, what are some of the things that you would look into, or say some of the nuances that you found working in these other countries that you haven't found working in Canada? It could be from a diversity issue, it could be a cultural fit, it could be hiring. When you hire people, they had different hiring practices, those types of things. And give some examples. In the Philippines, they have, when we hire full-time, we have they call it the 13th month. So you actually pay someone 13 months versus 12. And that all occurs for vacation and transitioning for leaving a company. So that person will always have that 13th month of salary. So it's kind of a fascinating structure, a little bit different. I find that in certain countries that they also take care of their employees a little bit differently than they do in Canada. So are there certain things that you might recommend or that you found in these different countries that you would look for? And Carolyn, you can speak to the Netherlands and you can speak to Canada, because they are probably very different coming from one and working in the other.
Yeah, they're they're very different and similar as well in a way. I think you're sitting in front of some global maps, and I think the Dutch were part of the first settlers that traveled the world and sailed the world. But I think the Dutch have kind of lost that exploring mindset, that entrepreneurial mindset, which I did find in Canada. So yeah, I think that's I think from a risk perspective, I think that might be a European thing. I'm not sure. I hate to talking like European as opposed to the countries that are within Europe. But I think we've become a very social, very government-driven countries, and I think Canada is the right mix between market economy, entrepreneurism, or and it's a for someone with entrepreneurial spirit. I think that's something I find very interesting in Canada.
So it's a pretty even bag then. There's not too much differences. So it's kind of allowed you to be able to assimilate quite easily into both spaces and work with everybody quite well.
Yeah, and I think, well, that's the part that I found in Canada, the entrepreneurial spirit that was kind of lost in the Netherlands. And I think, thinking big is a little music there on the side. But thinking bigger and thinking larger is something that is typically North American, and yeah, you can find in Canada and the United States, but Canada is a little more social. So yeah, I think that fits a little better to the European mindset as well.
For sure. And Tim, how about yourself? Have you come across any different sort of practices that have changed kind of the way you've worked there, and instead of making something up, hiring, you've decided to just partner or buy a company, like that type of thing?
Good question. I don't have a good answer. Yeah, no. I mean, everyone's so different. We don't hire any foreign employees, so I don't really have any comment on employing people in other countries. One of the things I really do love about operating in the UK, it's probably my favorite country out of all three that we're in right now actively to operate, in that there seems like they're much less regulation. They're just very open-minded and willing to try things. Yeah, and I really like the heritage of people there. You talk to people from different parts of the country, and you have this nice medley of new world entrepreneurialism with all this old historical things dating back to the medieval time, right? So it's really cool to see how modern technology there has kind of meddled with this really long history of long country there.
For sure. And Andrew, how about on yourself? What's your take on that?
Well, I think for me, and it's just I never got used to it, was the sort of in South America the different workday and the giant 2-hour lunches, like siesta. I would have lunch, and then I'd just be so tired because it was just like 2 dinners, and it's something that I just could not get used to. And then just something else from like a practical perspective, and in Peru, the way that the way that the government collects their equivalent of GST or HST is that the company issuing the invoice has to pay the remittance to the government. And then when they collect the payment, it's when that they sort of get that back. So, as opposed to here, where, net 30, net 60 days is what the typical practice is for paying invoices. We receive an invoice, and then literally like 5 days later, I'm getting calls like, "Where's the money? Where's the money?" But it's sort of only then did I realize, and I had to talk to our lawyers, like, why are these guys calling me? Like, it's been 5 days. And, they kind of explained to me, like, how it works there. I said, oh, okay, that makes sense. They've got to put the money up before, and then they got to collect it, and then they get it back. So I think that was just something that was totally different and unexpected, that I had sort of no clue that that was going to happen.
That's interesting. So I guess there's nobody comes and knocks on your door and says, here's how you're going to conduct business in these countries, and you pay the piper this way and that way.
Yeah, or I don't want guys coming and knocking on my door, actually, because that's not a good thing. But yeah, there's just all these little things, I guess, that you kind of learn, and every country it's a little bit different, and so you just have to sort of adjust to that. So.
And I guess overall, what does everybody find that has allowed them to succeed in expanding their business? Is it that we all have this entrepreneurial mindset that we're all driven and nothing can stop us and we'll make this happen? Or is there something else that kind of helps drive this? Is it the power of partnerships? Is it the power of is it that you find as being that key that's allowed you guys to expand and go into different countries? And not just because we have the travel bug and we all got to be somewhere else. We're like, you know what, I'd rather start a company in this country so I don't have to be in Canada and I can travel. That's all an expense. So I'm assuming that that's not our reason that we're all excited to go to another country. But what is that nugget that's allowed for that success to happen? Tim?
Gives us more time to think.
Yeah, good question. I think for me, what's allowed me to be successful is, one, being in the e-commerce space, technology has gotten so much better. Everything's more fluid. I can literally operate a company globally around the world from, my office here in Toronto, and do it, successfully through, invention of VoIP that's super compatible, and I can get a 1-800 number in the UK and Australia and in the US, and appear to be a local company and operate with local people. On top of that, it's just my own motivation is that I guess my definition of success as an entrepreneur personally was that if I can do Carnivore Club, but I can do it on a global scale, for me that was my ultimate definition of success for this particular company. And that's what drove me to do it. It's just my own personal motivation in conjunction with today's technology allowing me to do so with a path of least resistance.
No, that's pretty cool. No, I like that. And Carolyn, how about yourself? What's been the piece that's really helped drive you?
I think, well, yeah, like entrepreneurs are are champions in perseverance and taking your company somewhere others haven't even thought about. So I think that's like a trait that we all have. But I think like technology is amazingly important, that you can, I can be here in Amsterdam and things still get done. I mean, you have to show your face once in a while, of course, but that's obviously a very helpful. And I think that like the last couple of years, that's you've seen also the workspaces have changed. People don't necessarily, or companies don't necessarily own offices. They just have a collaboration or a network of people there. So I think, yeah, that's changing immensely, and that's helped as well. But I think, yeah, personal traits still, perseverance probably still is one of the major things you need to have, and a very thick skin as well.
Good point. Yep, I think thick skin's a good one. Gets thicker every day, I think. Andrew, how about yourself?
I was gonna say a Colombian dark roast coffee helps a lot with, especially after red eye flights. But like I think similarly, it's the drive. For me, it's trying to this large infrastructure project to bring it from a pie in the sky idea to something in the ground and built is just sort of the ultimate drive here. On the personal side, I think a quality that we all probably share is just the desire to learn. I think that's probably amongst entrepreneurs that's maybe even more so the desire to get something done, but the desire to learn. And I think when I went down to Peru and lived there, like I really wanted to learn sort of everything about the culture, about the people, about the history, and I think for all of us, if the more, I guess, especially in Canada, where it's a country of immigrants, the more that we know and understand and learn about everyone else and where they're coming from, I think it makes for just better relationships for everyone that you're involved with. So I think that's something that I always try to sort of live by, is always just be open and willing to learn.
So I guess to summarize all that, I guess it kind of makes sense that as an entrepreneur, you're going to have your driven, your tenacity, all these great skill sets that kind of help you make who you are and the reason why you're already expanding. And then you're going to take a little element of wanting, or maybe a large element of wanting to really immerse yourself into the culture and learn as much as you can, so you can kind of fit right in, so that they'll just believe in you just as much as you believe in being there. And then while you're going through that, it all kind of, as anything, takes its toll, and you're going to have some thick skin to kind of support all of that in order to build the longevity into it. In all of that, and I know that it's our time is at what it is, and I'm sure we could talk for hours on this, which the cool thing is we have a couple more of these Worldpreneur panels, so it'll be great to have you guys back. But I think I guess what I'll do is I'll kind of leave it at that one last question that would kind of allow you to kind of take the floor and throw 30 seconds out of what you think would be, call it let me see, maybe it's, this is in front of some students and they're looking at saying, you know what, I want to start a company. I love Canada. I love the resources that they have, but I also think this product's a better fit in Peru. Where do I start and what do I do? And what do you guys recommend as being that based on the country that you guys have started? And if, just one little nugget that says, go talk to the Board of Trade in Peru, that'll help you get started. And this is the direction you want to go. And Tim brought up a point earlier where, they hired local people to do PR and testing and doing the market analysis. Is that really the starting point? So maybe just to kind of summarize everything, what do you think is that kind of next step for somebody that wants to expand and get into this to this other country? Is it reach out to you guys, or do you guys actually have a point that says, do this? You can still call me, but here's the great start point for you to get into another country. And I think we all kind of heard lots of different point of views on, where Caroline started here and where Andrew started to get into those spaces. But maybe there's just one kind of summarizing point that you guys would provide that would say, if you're looking to get into England, this is what you want to start with, and this is the best point that I can give you.
Well, I think the point about learning is probably the most important for an entrepreneur if they start looking at another country. Learn the culture, learn how things are done there. Introductions are very nice and can help you move ahead, but opening up and seeing how things are done in a different culture really helps you. And I have had the advantage of knowing Canada, knowing Canadian culture as of a young age. But I think, you do need to invest time and energy to learn. Yeah, definitely.
Andrew?
I think just for my experience in South America is, if you sort of want to get down there, see, through your network, is there any kind of connection? And I think, a lot of people that I ended up working with, a lot of them were educated overseas. They've got family in Canada, or I think there's, just finding some sort of connection there to get started. And I think you'll find, and we found that, it can lead, very quickly to something. They're not huge countries, so I think the business communities everyone tends to know each other. So finding some way to find a connection and then I think you'd be surprised at the results of that.
For sure. Tim?
Yeah, for us, I haven't had the same networking aspect as Carolyn and Andrew. We've really went in, really just cold calling, saying, we're gonna put our flag down here, and just going in and winging it. And from my greatest advice is, talk to, cold call every company that you can across every category of business that you need to do business with. So for example, in Canada, US, and Europe, we do deal with a local national postal carrier there, and we don't do refrigerated shipping because sugar is relatively shelf stable, and that's how we've done business today. Launching in Australia, we kind of said we're going to launch there, and then we didn't realize how hot it is there, and that you can't actually ship meat, because the coldest it ever gets there is like 15 degrees. It gets up to like 41 in the summer, and we're like, wow, we're in like trouble. And then talking to lots of companies, we discovered that they actually have home delivery refrigerated couriers, where that doesn't exist in Canada, the US, where they have like refrigerated couriers. But that, because that is such a problem, and there are these food and perishable companies that do e-commerce, this has been something that's been set up over the last half a dozen years. And so that's an aspect of something that you're not going to be able to necessarily research until you actually get into and talk to companies that are actually already doing business there in a related field, or have some experiences that they could share with you. And I feel like if you're not going to be a direct competitor with someone, you could definitely give them a call, and entrepreneur to entrepreneur, they would definitely want to help you out, as part of it, paying it forward, right?
No, that's awesome. So I guess to summarize those great points, I think the key to any success, or at least starting success overseas or in another country, is certainly by learning the markets, figuring out your space, networking the hell out of everybody and anybody to kind of get inside and around that. And then I guess the next big thing is that once you're networking, getting in there, is go back to the old school roots and cold call and start getting in front of as many companies and businesses as you can, to start to learn quicker and faster the environment and space you're in. And then you'll be able to dig out some of these other nuggets while you're inside of there. So I think that's some great learnings, and I think that'll kind of help us summarize kind of where we're going. And maybe what I'll do is I'm going to throw out one last question, and you can choose to answer it or not. But it's a one-word answer, and it's only because I'm like, why not? Let's see, let's be fun. And we won't hold this against you whatsoever. Maybe the internet will, but I certainly won't. Who's going to win the presidential race in the U.S.? Got to make it controversial somewhat. Timmy.
Oh, geez.
I have to go back to Tim, because he was always giving me that, what?
I hope it's Hillary Clinton. If it's not, I'm really afraid. And not because I like Hillary Clinton, is because I think she is like the lesser of the two evils.
Andrew?
Yeah, I'd say I completely agree with that.
All right, Caroline?
Yeah, me too. I mean, the other option is just scary.
So I think that's
Trump, we're going to start coal mining again.
Yeah.
a lot of walls going up too, I guess. But nope, fair enough. Well, I love it. I appreciate all your insights, guys. And I think that there's probably going to be a lot more opportunities for us to do this again. But I do appreciate you guys for all your time and insights. I would love to keep chatting, but in respect to the time, I want to, we'll bounce off. But I guess if you guys have any final comments or anything else you want to say, by all means, the platform's yours. You can throw anything else that you'd like. If not, then we'll call it an adieu, and we'll break off. But you guys let me know if there's anything else you guys have. If not,
Well,
hold your peace.
I had fun. Thanks, guys.
Thanks, Jeff. Appreciate it.
Awesome.
Yeah, appreciate
All right,
it as
guys.
well. Thanks.
All right, take care. Thanks.
Bye.
Ciao.